Yesterday, I encountered some headlines and news stories, if you could call them that, on some important Western media. And I thought to share them with you, especially with respect to the postmortems on this first phase. Let me continue to insist on that of the Iran versus America war. I want you to listen to this, you know, uh, the Independent UK headline, particularly as published on Facebook. I will read and you can follow me on the screen. You will see it on your screen too. It said, the headline said, Trump has exposed the limits of his own power. Trump has exposed the limits of his own power. This headline is a bit of a misnomer. It is not Trump's power, it's America's power. Trump is the president of a country. Trump is not the person at war. It is not one single man fighting Iran. It is not the president of America fighting the president of Iran. It is America as a country fighting Iran as a country. Then the writer says the US and Israel have ended up weakened by the use of their massive military power. Let me repeat myself. The US and Israel have ended up weakened by the use of the massive military power. Now, New York Times now did better to actually give us numbers. Remember in one of my previous videos, I spoke about missile maths, how the US of A had been using by far more numbers of interceptors to shoot down by far fewer numbers of Iranian missiles and drones. How they have been using by far more expensive interceptor missiles to shoot down by far cheaper Iranian missiles and drones. Exactly. That was the exam. Now the result is out. The result of that missile maths of that time is now out. And no other media is as illustrious and as qualified to give us the result of that missile math exam by America, followed by Israel, other than one of America's primal media, the New York Times. Now, here the result. The headline says, you will see it on your screen, Iran war has drained US supplies of critical, costly weapons. Iran war has drained US supplies of critical, costly weapons. Now, the writer on Facebook says, in the Iran war, the US has burned through around 1,100 of its long-range stealth cruise missiles built for a war with China, not with Iran. Close to the total number remaining in the US stockpile. What that means is that the number America has burnt of the long-range stealth cruise missiles is equivalent roughly to the number that still remains. In short, America has burnt 50%, half of the entire armory of long-range stealth cruise missiles. It continued, the military has fired off more than 1,000 Tomahawk cruise missiles, roughly 10 times the number it currently buys each year. In short, America has burnt, 10 years worth of its supply, of its complete possible supply of Tomahawk cruise missiles, in less than 40 days of war in Iran. You don't understand what I'm trying to pass across there. The total volume of Tomahawk missiles that America manufactured in 10 years, America burnt it out in less than 40 days of war with Iran. Let us sink in. Now, the Pentagon used more than 1,200 Patriot interceptor missiles in the war at more than $4 million a missile and more than 1,000 precision strike and ATACMS ground-based missiles, leaving inventories worrisomely low. In short, America is trained. America is trained of critical missiles and war-fighting capabilities. Now, New York Times did not tell the whole story. Let me tell you the whole story. Practically all the American bases in the Persian Gulf are also gone. They are unusable. They are practically not usable to prosecute the next phase of the war against Iran. And that is why America has now brought in, up to 3 aircraft carriers to fight Iran in a potential second phase of the war. But there is a problem. Those 3 aircraft carriers leave America with a little to nothing in terms of active, usable aircraft carriers, especially considering the fact that America must continue to maintain aircraft carriers in other even bigger hotspots of the world, such as the South China Sea. All the ground-based bases of America in the Persian Gulf are gone. Because of that, America can only, fight from sea, even to fight against Iran on land. To do that, they brought in aircraft carriers. That makes those aircraft carriers, makes other war fighting regions of the world that are even hotter, that have a greater potential for, bigger war with America to be left even more vulnerable. Now, there is another troop numbers problem. Al Udeid alone, which has been taken out of circulation now by the Iranians, used to host up to 10,000 troops. Saudi Arabia as a country used to host up to 28,000 troops. Now, the combined number of troops that all the three aircraft carriers on America on the waters of the Middle East can host at this time is no more than 15,000. Add 2,500 here, 2,200 here, maybe on those frigates and destroyers and those other ships. Maybe you are talking a maximum, a complete, like max, you are talking around 25,000. So America has lost critical missiles. It has lost access to and use of its bases in the Middle East. It is now left with aircraft carriers that can only host a critically lower number of troops than those ground-based bases can possibly can. Apparently, that is one of the reasons why America seems to be reticent to launch the next phase of the war against Iran, despite President Trump's huffs and puffs, despite President Trump's promises of fire and brimstone. Because the men that should fight the war are not as available as they used to be. The bases where they could fight the war from are not as available as they used to be. The missiles and and other war fighting capabilities that they need to prosecute the war are now at critically low levels. And then the radars and radomes that should have helped them to communicate with the satellites and ensure they are essentially an all-seeing force around the Persian Gulf and the Middle East have been completely taken out. Whereas Iran, on the other side, is actually rapidly replacing any and everything they have lost during the war. Don't forget that Iran lost even a critically minimum level of warfighting capabilities in terms of armored trucks, in terms of ballistic missiles, and in terms of drones. Why? Because the vast bulk of what Iran uses to fight its wars are buried in caves under the rocks, where America could not reach, even with their JDAMs, even with their JASSMs, even with their bunker buster bombs and B-52s and B-21s. They could not reach where Iran actually stored the bulk of their missiles and stored the bulk of their drones and the stealth ships and the mosquito fleet boats and all the anti-ship missiles and all other war fighting capabilities. All of them, most of them are buried under the rock, some of them 500 meters deep. They could not bust, those mountainous bunkers. So while Iran lost only very little, and Iran's ability to replace what was lost during the war is astonishingly fast, and Iran is largely protected by the Alborz mountain range and the Zagros mountain range, under which they put the guys that are doing the fighting and the things they are fighting with, in terms of weapons. America was largely exposed, and they have lost practically most of what they need to fight the war. And that is why all that is left for the US of A at this time is about the naval blockade, where they masked all that is left of the aircraft carriers, at least that they can spare in the Middle East, and all that is left of the minesweepers, of the frigates, and of the destroyers. Unfortunately, even that blockade is not exactly blockading. Very leaky blockade, where while some of the ships are actually boarded and actually sent back by the Americans, quite a number, almost an equal number of ships of Iranian ships are actually beating the blockade, beating and getting through the leaky blockade in and out of the Strait of Hormuz, the Arabian Sea, and the Indian Ocean. So that is the current status quo. Things are not looking good for the US of A if they decide to go back to war against Iran. That is essentially the summary and the thesis. I hope you enjoyed this session. Thank you very much. Have a good day.